Mr. Nihad Awad is Executive Director of the Council for American Islamic Relations. Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning. First of all, let me congratulate the Center for Islam and Democracy on great work that has been doing, and under the leadership of Dr. Ridwan Masmoudi. This is a timely issue, and I think the timing of having this discussion definitely has to do with the recent events that took place in Paris. However, I slightly disagree with the theme and the framing of the issue, the root causes of radicalization, when I believe that there is a bigger issue, which what leads people to be radical and take violent actions. So in this spirit, I would like to share with you some remarks about how I feel about the issue itself as an American Muslim, and also I'll go back to the issue of the root causes of radicalization. Definitely the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks have been harmful to all of us, and have been tough on American Muslims in particular, who find themselves yet again in the same spot 15 years ago, 14 years ago, after the 9/11 terrorist attack, where Islam has become the issue. And questions started to surround the Islamic faith itself, the Muslim American community itself. We started to blame the religion of the 1.7 billion people. And we had less time and willingness to talk about the issues, the root causes that led to what we see on television. But also, it is important, since the debate has been centered unjustly on Islam and Muslims, the overwhelming majority of Muslims, then let me address that very particular issue. What does Islam say on violence and free speech? I know that to many Muslims, they're tired of this issue, especially young people. Before I decided really to join this discussion, I had a meeting with community members, mainly young people, and I wanted to share with them my thoughts. And I was not surprised to hear their views on this. Young American Muslims are tired of local and national organizations coming on television condemning every terrorist act that takes place. They're tired of this because they feel that it is undue, it is unwarranted for us to come every time and having to condemn terrorism and quote-unquote apologize. When they don't see Christian leaders, Jewish leaders being requested or challenged by politicians and by media to defend Christianity, to defend Judaism, when there are acts in the name of Christianity, in the name of Judaism, being committed so many places, so many times, and there is no challenge, there is no Fox News barraging people and bringing national and local leaders just to beat on them on national television, cutting them off, not allowing them to speak, and lowering the volume on their mics, accusing them, and questioning where are the moderate Muslims. We don't see these questions asked to Christian leaders. When Anders Breivik killed 77 people in Oslo, in Norway, hunting them down one by one, mainly young people, and he had a manifesto of 1,500 pages, citing Christian beliefs and Christian identity, and the so-called threat of Islam to the Christian identity of Europe. We did not see Christian leaders being requested and asked and challenged to come out and challenge and defending Christianity itself, challenging the terrorists. Abortion bombers who believe that in the right of the unborn, and they go and bomb they bomb abortion clinics based on their conviction, their belief that it is a Christian right, duty to go and kill these people who perform abortions, in contradiction with the Christian belief. We don't see churches and Christian leaders being requested on national and local television, or even by politicians requesting and demanding, where are the moderate Christians who condemn these people? We don't see these questions being raised. We don't see Christianity becoming the focus and attention of politicians and media. But there is a comfort level when it comes to Islam and Muslims. Identifying these criminals with their faith is an affront to me as a Muslim, is an affront to all of us, intellectuals and community leaders, who find themselves time and again in the same spot by just people who have the microphone and having the political power to have that position and start beating on a community like the Muslim community. I believe this is unfair and uncalled for, and it shows the hypocrisy and double standard when it comes to judging events and alleging that these people and these faiths are incriminated and implicated in these events. That's the feeling of young American Muslims. Young American Muslims also feel tired of seeing government agencies and media pointing out to them about the issue of radicalization, as if we're telling young American Muslims that all of you are suspect, not because of what you do, but of what potentially you can do because of your faith. They're tired of hearing this. They're tired of seeing so much resources being devoted by law enforcement on the so-called radicalization and countering violent extremism. When in fact, when you look at researches, you see that only very few Muslim Americans have been involved in terrorist acts. Compared to right-wing extremists, last year, more right-wing extremists have been involved in domestic terrorist acts than American Muslims. Yet you see undue attention and disproportionate attention being given to young American Muslims. We're not being honest when we talk about terrorist acts that are linked to Muslims versus terrorist acts that are linked to people of other faith communities. We're not honest. Why? Because it sells more to talk about American Muslims. Islam is not known to American society. And the public opinion is linked not to what they know about Islam from interacting with American Muslims, but from what they see on national television. And therefore, when you survey the public opinion, you will see that there is a tendency towards, a negative tendency towards looking at Islam as a violent religion. So we as Muslims, we're tired of being depicted as inherently violent people because of our faith, when in fact there is nothing in our faith that encourages Muslims to be violent or more violent than Christians or Jews. Read the latest op-ed by Karen Armstrong, where she says there is nothing in Islam that makes it more violent than Christianity. So back to the issue itself. Since free speech was uttered, and since Islam has been blamed for the recent events, not the terrorists themselves, Islam has become the subject of discussion. And I just saw a main headline on CNN, the war within Islam. I believe that there is a war within their minds, the producers who made that notion. This is very offensive to me, to implicate the entire Islamic faith and the 1.7 billion people into accusing them of being inherently violent and warring among themselves. I believe this is dishonest discourse. The Prophet himself, peace be upon him, was ridiculed and was mocked and was accused of being a liar, magician. So challenge and mockery is not new or alien to Muslim activists or even the prophets, not only Prophet Muhammad, but other prophets. And we see in the Quran, counseling the Prophet himself to be patient over what they say to him and about him. In fact, the Prophet himself reads the Quran to his fellow Muslims, quoting the order from God that when you hear mockery, you should be patient. And the Quran, in a major chapter, describes the believers that they are, when they are addressed by the ignorant, the response is peace. And the Quran also reminds believers that a good deed is not equivalent to a bad deed. Repel that which is evil with that which is good. There is not a single verse in the Quran that encourages Muslims to commit harm or inflict harm or kill people just because you are marked as a believer. In fact, freedom is the foundation of Islamic belief. Verse number 256, chapter 2, says, "Let there be no compulsion in religion." This is the foundation of my faith as a Muslim, that you have the freedom to express yourself, you have the freedom to believe, even not believing in God. That's your right, and you have the freedom to do that. And this is from the Quran. This is not a political interpretation. This is not a political opinion. And Muslims live by this. And therefore, if any suggestion that violence and free speech is not in Islam, does not exist, I tell these people, go and read the Quran itself. If you judge the behavior of some Muslims and blame Islam on it, then you are being selective. So the incident that took place in Paris was universally condemned by scholars, by institutions, by leaders worldwide. And it is not the only and first incident that was carried in the name of Islam and was condemned universally. I do not recall any terrorist incident that took place that was not condemned by Muslim leaders. And I know that Fox News and the likes always question, and we say to them, we condemn not in response to your pressure, because in defense of our faith we condemn. We clear the name of our faith when anyone utters the name of Islam when they carry a crime. We have been doing this for many years, but the media was not willing to broadcast and show our positions. I have evidence that we have condemned every major attack in the name of Islam, and I have evidence that the overwhelming majority of our American media decided not to show our statement. Why? Because it does not sell. It is easier to just conflate Islam with terrorism rather than bringing our statements and clear the name of Islam. It does not sell. It does not fit the agenda of some media networks. So I will not take it when someone says, where are the moderate Muslims? I'll say, where is your conscience? Why you decided to receive our emails and our statements and you decided not to show it? That is my challenge to the media. That is my challenge to media, to news producers in their newsrooms. Most of the time, young people who are radicalized, they are radicalized over the internet. Not by their imams, not by their sermons, because the overwhelming majority of American Muslims reject violent extremism and terrorism. Many of these people, they get recruited over the internet, which no one of us has control over because it's not regulated. The government does not have control over it. Imams do not have control over it. The parents do not have control over it. It is wide space. It is uncontrolled. And most of these extremists, when they want to justify their violent attacks against civilians or governments or anywhere else, they cite legitimate grievances. They cite Palestine, the oppression and the occupation in Palestine. They cite Afghanistan. They cite the killing fields in Syria, and they cite Iraq. They cite oppression, and they cite repressive regimes and lack of democracies. So you cannot blame Islam when we know that the Western governments and European governments have a lot to do with these important crises and causes. And we should not escape from our responsibility, from putting more resources and more attention into resolving these crises that are taking place. And I agree with the conclusion that Dr. Adwan Masmoudi said, that we have to have an honest discourse about our involvement as Western powers in the suffering of people in the Middle East. That is not a justification, but this is an explanation. The easy way is to blame Islam and Muslims and just let Fox News set the tone and talk about no-go zones which do not exist, and bring so-called experts and even politicians and presidential hopefuls like the governor of Louisiana saying there are no-go zones, but when he is put on the spot, he cannot defend himself. Imagine if we get more people like him who will govern our lives and will be the leaders of the world, if they have microscopic and myopic and narrow-minded view of events. That is a more dangerous place than having few radical people who are condemned by the overwhelming majority. My fear is if we get elected leaders, respected leaders, to misrepresent events and create policies that will harm all of us combined. So what is needed is to talk about the root causes of these problems and have an honest debate. And that is the test for free speech. Thank you.